Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again on this Saturday morning for some more stories right here on Thailand Bound. I've got 5 stories for you today. Some of them are quite short, that's why there's 5, but the length of the upload is about the same. If you're a regular watcher to this channel, you know I recently went down to Hua Hin and I did a video all about Hua Hin. Well, I shot a lot of background video while I was on a scooter going around, but most of it I didn't include in that particular video because that video was focused on certain aspects of Hua Hin, entertainment, accommodation, things to do. But I did do a lot more filming on the bike, on the scooter. So I'm going to use that today as the background video for this upload today. So if you're one of those guys who's interested in visiting or retiring in Hua Hin, this video, the background video behind me, will show you a lot more than I actually did in the video last week, if that makes sense. Okay, right, let's crack on with the first of 5 stories today. And I've got a lot to say about this story at the end. It's quite short.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Hello Peter, I am 75 years old and I joined your YouTube channel several months ago. I enjoy your channel tremendously. I visited Phuket last October but never made it to Bangla Road as I had a broken leg and did not feel like walking that much. I fell in love with Thailand and plan on going back this October and spending some more time checking out a few different places. I recently broke up with my girlfriend of 10 years who is 44, partly because I cannot keep up with her anymore and partly because I am tired of being a sugar daddy. I told her I wanted more. She is not ready to settle down. I joined a Thai dating site and within 3 days had nearly 80 likes, but I chose to write to a young lady from the general listing. Her profile picture was of her standing in a field surrounded by sheep, and it was listed as Chiang Mai, some place that I'm interested in seeking next time I visit. She was looking for a man and there was no age limit listed, so I thought, what the heck, and text her, not really expecting anything back. I was really more interested in finding out about Chiang Mai. It has been 2 weeks now and the kid, 35 years old, texts me 2 or 3 times every day. We have exchanged pictures and she complimented me on being a good looking man. After watching your channel, I'm waiting for the con, or maybe she's just a nice person. She texts me that she wanted to set up a video call and I said okay, knowing that would probably be the last I would hear from her. She called to make sure that I was a real person and since then we have been video chatting and texting. She calls me honey, darling, sweetheart and lover. I know the Asian culture is more accepting of age differences between couples, but this seems way outside normal. She is absolutely beautiful and has a glamorous lifestyle. She said she buys and sells real estate and has an interest in a bar in Bangkok, and she is into stocks and crypto trader. Being skeptical, I shared this information with my granddaughter, the detective of the family. She did an image search on the internet and tried to find out as much as she could about her in Thailand, but nothing came up. She said that the family name showed up in New York and they are heavily invested in real estate. During my conversation with Pom, she said she had talked to her uncle in New York and was getting some advice about crypto. So maybe she is what she says she is. I really do not see this going any place because I would never be able to keep up with her, but it makes me feel young at heart and maybe I can keep her as a friend. I really did not plan on writing a book. I will attach some pictures and you are welcome to share what I have written if you find it of value. As always, you will change the names and not share the pictures. The reason I was writing to you is to find out when your members' YouTube releases. I have not been able to get any notifications and thought you might have some suggestions. Okay, well, firstly, on members' release, if you're a member, you get to listen to these videos on a Tuesday morning as opposed to everybody else on a Saturday morning. So you should just click obviously you're subscribed, so you can click the bell notification, accept all notifications, and you should get notified on a Tuesday. But if you don't, you now know that this video comes out on a Tuesday for members and about 4 days later for everybody else. Right, let's talk about the girl. So I can't share the pictures with you, obviously. Even if he said I could, I wouldn't. I just don't do that. Honestly, guys, the pictures that he sent me, she's not even a 10, she's an 11. She's an absolutely stunning woman, okay? Now, it's really crazy because he says the first picture, she was in a field, like a farmer, I guess. But then, again, she lives a very glamorous lifestyle. And the pictures I've seen on her, the pictures that he showed me, she was drinking wine at what looked like a rooftop hotel bar in Bangkok. Very, very glamorous, very beautiful, very glamorous. Now, I don't give advice on girlfriends, and I'll tell you why after this. But I did this guy. First of all, he's 75, right? No disrespect to him, but he's 75. She's 35 and an absolute stunner. Why is she writing to him, okay? She could have any guy in the world. She really could. If you've seen the photograph, you'd fall in love with her instantly, okay? She's talking about crypto, okay? That's a big, big no-no. You know, any girl who starts talking to you about crypto and investments, and my uncle's helping me with crypto, for me, she's obviously a scammer. Absolutely, okay? But when I wrote back to the guy, I was very gentle in the way I put it. It's up to him what he does. Obviously, he'll watch this video. No, I mean, it's just all the red flags were there. And, she's obviously one of these girls. She just trolls all the dating sites, goes after older guys, gets them to fall in love, and then somehow, gets them involved in trading with crypto or whatever, and just milks them. That's my opinion. Everyone's allowed to an opinion, even me, right? Now, I just want to tell you very, very quickly, I will jump into the next story quickly, but the reason I don't give advice on relationships, I'm not putting myself out there as an expert, Uncle Peter's relationship story, nothing like that. As I said, I have an opinion. But I used to get a lot of guys, rookie guys who'd never been out here, or they'd been out here once and they'd met a girl, the girl of their dreams, and certain red flags popped up, which even they could spot. And they'd write to me and say, look, this is the circumstances. This is where I met her. This is what I found out. I've seen this on Facebook. What do you think? And I'd write back and give my honest opinion and say, well, you can give her a break. That doesn't mean something bad. Or, if she's got several Facebook pages, maybe she's trying to scam me. I used to just give information, advice. And if it was obvious to me that she was just a freelancer out to hook guys, I would tell guys, well, I stopped doing that completely now. And the reason being is because one guy in particular, about 2 years ago, or a year ago, maybe, not 2 years, a year ago, he wrote to me and he standard email, I met this girl, she worked in a bar in Pattaya, blah, 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 blah. And I wrote back to him and I gave him my opinion on the girl. Okay, about a week later, I got an email from this particular girl writing to me. She said, I'm 100% convinced she was a freelancer and she probably had 5 guys on the go. But she wrote to me and she said, you sent my boyfriend an email and he's finished with me now and you should mind your own business. And, she's kind of writing away. It's not for me to kind of get in the way of relationships. But on the other hand, I do feel kind of obliged to help guys out if I'm looking at a relationship, I think he's getting scammed, this isn't right. But because of that reason now, if I was sitting down with you face to face, then yeah, I'd probably mention it. But if guys write to me and say, can you give me some advice on this girl? Now I just write back politely and say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Okay, right, let's jump into story number 2. I met Thon on a dating app back in 2019. She was 26 and had just arrived in Los Angeles from Thailand on a student visa. I was 42 and working as a mechanical engineer. She was very cute, soft-spoken, and spoke decent English. We messaged for a few days and then decided to meet for dinner. She showed up in a white dress with a big smile and I was immediately smitten. We had a nice time, laughed a lot, and she told me about her dreams of living in America and working in the hospitality business. I walked her back to her apartment and we ended the night with a hug. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other regular. She always made sure she looked great and was very affectionate. At first, everything was perfect. She would cook Thai food for me and tell me about her childhood in Isan. She came from a poor family and wanted to make a better life for herself. I admired that. She said her ex-boyfriend in Thailand was not supportive and treated her badly. I felt like I was the lucky one who got to give her a new start. The first chance she had time off, she set up dates with different guys on Tinder and had aerobics with them to see which type of an American guy she prefers for intimacy. I had no idea this was going on at the time. She told me she was working part-time and going to school. So I believed her. I even helped her with the rent a couple of times when she said she was struggling. A few months into our relationship, I noticed she started getting more distant. She stopped replying to messages quickly and always seemed busy. One day, I surprised her with flowers and found another guy in her apartment. She said he was just a friend from school. I wanted to believe her, but things started to unravel quickly after that. She began asking for money, and frequently. First, it was for school books, then for her phone bill, then for an emergency trip to San Francisco. I later found out she never left town. Around that time, I started hearing stories from other guys who had dated Thai women in LA and realised I might not be the only one she was seeing. Eventually, I confronted her about everything. She denied it all and called me paranoid. We broke up shortly after. A few months later, I saw her profile again on the same dating app. She had updated her bio to say she was looking for generous men who like to spoil their girlfriend. That was the confirmation I needed. I felt stupid for falling for her, and even worse for ignoring the signs. It took me a long time to trust women after that. Looking back, I think she was just doing what she needed to do to survive in a new country, but it still hurt. I hope she found what she was looking for, and I hope other guys are more careful than I was. I mean, yeah, the writing's on the wall, isn't it? It's absolutely obvious what she was doing. She's gone to America. She wants to stay in America, and she's just trying to find a guy, any guy, who will hook up with her and stay with her and get her is it still a green card, so that she can stay there. She needs to survive as well. She probably didn't have a job, and she was using various guys to get money. There's not more to be said about this story. Okay, onwards and upwards. Let's jump into story number 3. I have been to Thailand twice since I last emailed you. I won a horse racing bet for £4,500 on the day of the Euros final from a £10 bet, which helped me fund the second trip. Nothing different from normal on my second trip, just good times, nothing worth talking about. But on my third and last trip, I decided to stay for 2 months from January to March, since they updated the no visa entry to 60 days during that time. I had a great time, met a few of my regular girls in Bangkok and in Pattaya, all good fun. I'm a young man. I turn 32 next week on the 27th of May, and I'm in a decent shape. I am surprised how a lot of these Thai girls are so full of themselves now, especially the younger ones. Some of them remind me of being back home. This is why I go for girls more in their late 20s to late 30s. But all in all, Thailand is still the best place in the world to be right now, and I love it there. I have also recently passed my teaching English course, and I hope to be doing that when I come back next month in June and stay for a long time. Well, anyway, here is what happened. I ended up going down Soi 6 quite a lot, as my hotel was not far from there. And one of the girls I bar-fined a few times ended up staying with me after we walked back to my hotel and stopped off at 7-Eleven for some food because she was having trouble in the bar with some of the other girls. So business as usual. I wake up, I pay her, and she leaves. Then about an hour later, I keep getting phone calls and messages from her saying she was downstairs in the lobby with her things. I thought, oh no, I only had about 10 days left and I did not want to be stuck with a girl. I like my freedom and to go out and to have fun. Well, anyway, I ignored it for about 15 minutes thinking how to get out of this, but then she knocked on my door and I just answered it, and there she was with 2 big suitcases. I was too hungover from this. I just let her in with her things, and that was that. I ended up spending the last 10 days with her, but what I did on the last 5 nights was pay for another room on the floor above and would message other girls on dating apps and get them to meet me in the other room for some aerobics. Luckily, the hotel was only cheap at 600 baht per night, so I was paying 1200 now. Some of the staff knew what I was up to and used to smirk and smile at me. Well, I guess my karma did come, because on my last night, I got me and my Thai girlfriend from Soi 6 a pizza and we watched a movie. She always fell asleep and she was a heavy sleeper. I already had another girl lined up to meet me in the room at around 11. Well, the girl was still wide awake and the other girl was on her way, so I said to the girl in my room, wait here, I'm going to nip to 7-Eleven and I won't be long. I asked if she wanted anything and she said a strawberry milkshake. I said, okay, won't be long, my love. I went to the other room and waited for the other girl. She took a long time, which was not good, as the other girl was now messaging me, asking me where I was, and she kept video calling me. It was bad. Then eventually the other girl turned up, and guess what? It was a ladyboy, and she was twice the size of me, and I am 5'9". She was big built and looked nothing like the photos. It annoyed me because I did ask if she was a ladyboy before we arranged the meet. She said she was not, but obviously she was. Well, anyway, she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not okay." "Why did you not tell me you were a ladyboy?" She said she was not. I said, "Prove it then." I knew she was lying. Well, anyway, I asked her to leave. She said, "Give me 1,000 baht," as she had to pay for a taxi and other things. I said, "You can have 500 baht, just go." She would not leave. After arguing back and forth for around 20 minutes, I gave in. She gave me the 500 back and I just gave the 1,000. But then she still would not leave. This was my last night as well, and I was gutted. It ruined my last night, and I felt so bad because of the girl in my room waiting so long, and this ladyboy would not leave even after I gave 1,000. In the end, I pretended to leave. There was nothing in that room anyway, but she followed me and was on the phone making threats to me. She followed me all the way downstairs to reception, and she pretended to be on the phone to the police when she was not. The receptionist was not much help, to be honest. She just told the ladyboy to stop shouting when she was getting loud. We sat in the lobby for about another 20 minutes with people coming in and out. It was embarrassing to say the least. In the end, I asked the receptionist what is the number for the police. She told me and I rang the police. This scared the ladyboy, and the police did say to me there was nothing they could do, that it was a civil matter between me and her, no crime had been committed. Luckily, the ladyboy did not hear this, as I did not have it on speaker. But the ladyboy said, "Give me 300 more and I will go." I said, "You said that about 1,000 baht." She said, "Give me 300 and I will go." I gave her another 300 and off she went. I could not believe it. After all the good times on my very last night, I got that. Maybe it is karma and I deserved it. I did feel bad because of the other girl waiting in my room, and she was a lovely girl, to be honest, and will still speak now, and she does not know about what happened. I made up some excuse about bumping into an old friend and going for one drink with him. She seemed to believe me as well, so I suppose the story could have been worse, even if she had not believed me and started a fight. Thank heavens for small mercies, dear oh dear. Guys, you're in charge down there. You know, when you go to a place like pattaya, you can't let people run rings around you, because these girls, ladyboys, whatever, they're real professional, hardcore people, okay? They've been through the scenario hundreds of times. You know, you could, like this guy, you know, what he should have done is when that girl turned up with his bags, he should have put his foot down and said, "No, you're not staying," you know? And if she would have insisted or made an hour, he could have just gone downstairs to security and said, "Look, I entertained this girl last night. She's brought some bags. I don't want her in my room. Could you assist me?" He's a guest of the hotel. The security would have had her out of the hotel, and that would have been the end of the matter. As for the ladyboy, my goodness me. Yeah, they're famous for it. What he should have done is just totally refused her. Absolutely refused her. Bearing in mind that room had none of his property in there. It was just an empty room. He was using it for what he described. In that situation, what he should have done is just walk past her, again, straight down to security, and just explain the situation and just said, "I want nothing to do with her. Get her out the hotel." All that about calling the police. The ladyboys are really scared to death of the policing because they get up to a lot of no good. You know, I mean, they steal gold change, they pickpocket, and you know, the police are always arresting them, so they're very scared of the police. But you know, if you're one of these guys who you're not very experienced and this sort of thing happens to you, just point blank refuse. Go and see the security. That's what the security is there for. You're the guest of the hotel. They will assist you. Okay, right. Let's jump into the fourth of 5 stories today. You are an inspiration to men of our generation. Thank you. You became single, followed your dream, and created a community. Well done, sir. Not everyone is cut out to be a successful YouTuber, so I wonder how others keep themselves busy and productive. I would be interested to learn more about that from your friends. Well, anyway, last year I submitted a story that did not make the cut, but suffice it to say that I met a lovely girl on Soy Cowboy called Pom. And she was my first experience since my first visit to Thailand back in 2003. It was kind of a weird experience because it was my first night there. I was exhausted and I could barely perform. I felt a bit humiliated, but she did not seem to care and spent the rest of the time on her phone before she took off. That trip involved the standard sights of Bangkok, a guided walking tour a flight to Phuket, which I was not impressed with, then over to Pattaya. It was glorious. All the videos I had been watching over the years made me feel like I had been there a dozen times already. So this past holiday season, I arrived for round two. This time, I gave myself a chance to rest up. I explored some other areas of the city, including the Erawan Shrine, which truly floored me. I also got to go to a few sky bars, including Tribe, on top of the M-Sphere with new friends, a couple of real professional women I had met on Instagram. It was refreshing to meet and hang out with women who are not in the entertainment industry. They were super friendly and we got to know each other quite well over food and drinks. One was in the middle of a divorce with an English guy and the other was married to a young Australian and they had a toddler son. We spoke a lot about understanding Western men and the difference in philosophy in raising children. It kind of felt like a therapy session for them. After a couple of days exploring, eating and visiting out of the way jazz clubs, I felt ready to hit Soy Cowboy. I like to wear a hat, which is a good idea in the Thai sun. I favour the Outback hats. It's my favourite. It makes me pretty recognisable. I approached the same club as last year and who do you think was standing outside? I approached Pom and she took a double take. She said, "Cowboy, I know you." I said, "Yes, from last year. You have an excellent memory." We went inside, had a few drinks. I watched her dance a couple of times and a good time was had by all. I think she was kind of the big sister to a lot of the girls because we got a lot of attention. It seemed that the girls with better English were taking shifts translating for us. Eventually, the bar was paid and we headed back. This time, the tables were turned. Apparently, she had a bit too much to drink, and by the time we got back to my room, she was like moving around a sack of potatoes. Eventually, I got bored of this and renegotiated her fee to half of what it was. She happily took it and was gone. There went my fantasy night out of the window. I had one more day and night before I was to make my way down to Koh Samui. So after a day of exploring Klong Toi and a terrific jazz bar in North Phrom Phong, I decided to end my night again on Soy Cowboy. I enjoyed a great band at the Penny Black with Guinness while fighting off the Freelancers. I then walked down to my favourite go-go. I was immediately swarmed by 4 or 5 girls saying, "You were here last night. You went with Pom. I know your hat. Pom no work today." Well, I was dragged in and given the corner seat and at times I had 3 lovely ladies sitting with me. No bar fines this evening. I made that clear with them. So we all had a good night. The next couple of weeks, including New Year's Eve in Koh Samui, a very interesting and kind of funny First Lady Boy experience there, which I am happy to share if you want that story. A scuba diving trip to Koh Lanta, where I came down with a flu, and another few days in Pattaya. I will tell you, getting to Pattaya from Koh Lanta was a slog. Pattaya is always fun. I did my first bar hopping bus tour, starting at a great bar in Jomtien, and it was a total blast. There were only about 8 of us on the tour, and we were all best buddies by the end of it. But let's pick up on my last night back in Bangkok before my flight home. After getting off the bus at Egabaya station, I explored the area a bit, found a great khao soy noodle place, and I ate very well. I found my hotel in Asok, then went for a walk around in Benjikiti Lake for sunset. That's when I ran into you and the 2 guys you were with, Peter. That evening, I had an amazing sushi dinner, more rock and roll on Soy Cowboy, and although I was not expecting to go into the go-go bar, I just decided to walk by. Well, Pom was working and immediately latched onto me, and in we went. After 2 drinks, she started insisting that I bar fine her. I tried to explain through her friends that I had an early flight tomorrow and wanted to rest. She was not happy. I asked her friends why she was so insistent, and they explained that she had a lot of debt to pay off and there were not a lot of customers. After a while, she understood that I was going to be a stick in the mud and started to relax, and we just enjoyed our drinks and the music. Her little sisters came to hang out and I found it to be a very satisfying last night. When I left, I gave her my leftover paper money and she was very grateful. I think about Thailand every day. I dream about retiring there, especially nowadays given all the political nonsense happening in the USA. I may not make it back this year given some family obligations and having to use some vacation time for emergency eye summary. Getting old sucks, but when I'm able, I will certainly return and be sure to bump into you again. Best wishes from Santa Barbara. Quite a nice story there, and it makes me kind of open my eyes, and sometimes I forget how lucky I am to live here. I'm not a wealthy guy, but I'm living quite a nice life in a nice country. I know how things work, and sometimes I forget that. I get into a kind of humdrum life like I was in the UK, and I forget where I am. And a lot of guys will write to me and say, you don't realise how lucky you are living out there full time, living the dream as it were. And they're right. You know what? Touch wood, I have my health, and hopefully I'll have a lot of years left, and I mustn't ever forget how lucky I am to be living here full time in the land of smiles. And just back to his story where he said the girls weren't having many customers because it was quiet. One of the nice things about living here is actually being able to experience low season and the rainy season. A lot of people are writing and they'll say they don't want to be here when it's a monsoon season, but it's actually quite nice when you're in Bangkok and it's much more quieter from tourists, and it's just a different vibe, you know, and I kind of like it. And I do like the rainy season as well, especially when I'm not out in the rain, if that makes sense. Right, okay, very short story to end on, and this is a fifth of 5 stories today. I was on a business trip to Bangkok, my first time there. My colleagues who visited before took me to a couple of the rougher entertainment venues in Patpong too. Never sit in the front row, if you know what I mean. We were working through and there was no overnight action. There might have been the odd lady drink. It was the early 1990s and the BTS construction sites meant a 90-minute taxi ride to the office, at least 2 hours to Don Mueang Airport. Happy days. My alarm was set for 5:30 a.m. every weekday for breakfast at 6:30. This wasn't an easy job. It was there 3 weeks of very challenging work. A couple of days before we left, we were eating in a restaurant on Ceylon, and our waitress named Win started talking to me. Not you handsome man or anything like that. Her English was very good, and it seemed that her uncle was Australian and she'd spent a couple of years in Melbourne. She knew these suburbs well, so she couldn't have been lying. She was extremely good looking. I asked her if she'd like to go to dinner after she finished work, as she couldn't stop or talk for long, as she was a real waitress and she was working now, but she agreed to meet up for dinner. We went to the Intercontinental, where there was a band and a floor show. There was no funny business that night. I gave her a couple of $100 so that she could take a taxi back to Thonburi and not a bus at that time of night. After all, I was the one who'd kept her out so late. This was my idea, not hers. I went back to her restaurant on the night before I flew home, and we agreed to stay in touch. It transpired that Win worked in an office during the day and at the restaurant at night. The office job was legitimate because she had a business card, and I usually called her on that landline number going through reception. It was a large company. We also communicated through faxes. It was therefore quite unlikely that she was a bar girl, unless she juggled 3 jobs. My next business trip was to Hong Kong a few weeks later, and I had an idea. Why not fly her over? She could stay in my hotel and go sightseeing, sit by the pool, use the spa, and do anything else that took her fancy. My business expenses would look after food, transport, and incidentals, and I should point out that I was in a long and strong relationship at the time at home. But let's just say that my girlfriend couldn't keep up with me. We were both 28 and I was pretty athletic. That said, I didn't have any intentions of that nature with Win. It was probably the 7-year itch. So I asked Win if she would like to come to Hong Kong for a holiday, and she was very excited. I booked and paid for her flights and her visa. I picked Win up from Kai Tak Airport and took her to the hotel. She wanted to catch up for lost time from night 1 and made me feel 18 again and 80 afterwards. She was slim but had stretch marks. I had only ever encountered them once before, and this surprised me as she'd not mentioned any children. She also tried to hide them from me. Fair enough. She stayed for almost a week. I gave her about $70 a day because Hong Kong can be expensive, and I wanted her to enjoy herself while I was at the office. Considering that I was living it up for free anyway, this was no problem. She only had to buy lunch, breakfast and dinner were catered for. I was able to show her around Hong Kong when I finished work each day. She didn't ask for extra money to go shopping and pointed out that clothes were less expensive back in Thailand anyway. Her time came to an end and I took her to the airport. She was very emotional and promised to remain in touch. I was flying for work a great deal at the time and didn't have another trip to Bangkok planned for another 6 months. I could not fly up there for a holiday because of my girlfriend in Melbourne. She might be crazy, but she's not stupid. A month later, Wynne told me that her mother was ill. You never saw that coming, did you? She needed the equivalent of $350. That is not an extraordinary amount, given that I knew her financial situation, working 2 jobs. Not an extraordinary emergency. After all, she'd just taken a week off work for the Hong Kong trip. I didn't quibble and simply sent it. She was very grateful, and I hope that her mother was too. Another month later, and then the bombshell. She is pregnant. If you have been following this story so far, you'll see the problem here. It certainly wasn't me, and for 2 good reasons. I'm confident that you can guess both of them. I didn't want to bring her back any unwanted duty free from that Hong Kong trip to give to my girlfriend. I had been very careful to not give Wynne my home number, and after I'd blocked her office number from my work phone and fax, that was it. Thank God for the days of no social media and mobile phones. This is something I bear in mind were I to play around out there in the future. Create new accounts completely divorced from your real identity. Perhaps even use an old Nokia for her and not a smartphone. If she'd been more plausible with her second request for funds, I might have kept supporting her. Having a mistress back in Melbourne would have been far more dangerous and expensive than getting up to mischief abroad. I could have afforded to keep her on the boil, as it were, until I returned, but the pregnancy story had destroyed my trust in her. I've never visited that restaurant again. Ignoring Wynne made me feel quite guilty for a while. She definitely wasn't into the bar work, at least when I knew her, and might have had legitimate reasons for asking for a bit of help. Perhaps she thought that I would ditch my girlfriend for her. It's complicated to explain, but this would have been awkward. My family would have been horrified. Perhaps she had several Farangs as patrons. I wish her well. I have much worse conscience had it not been for the attempted pregnancy scam. Hearing the stories from other men, I got off lightly. It was fun and worth every penny. I never played away from home after that. So quite an interesting story. And this does happen from time to time. Girls that have got legitimate jobs, they always want to better themselves. And some girls think that if they hook up with a foreigner, you know, they have a relationship with a foreigner, they're going to have a much better life and they can kind of milk them a bit for money. So you've got to be really, really careful. And personally, me, I mean, there's no way, if I took a girl to Hong Kong, how he described, there's no way I would have let her roam around the city and go out by herself and do all these things, bearing in mind what goes on, you know, a few sort of customers during the day, that sort of thing. But then that's just me. I've always been a bit suspicious. All right, guys, look, if you've been watching my channel for a number of years, you might have realised I did read that last story out before, about 4 years ago. It's quite a nice story, so I thought I'd read it out again. The reason I read it out is because the upload would have been shorter. I've actually run out of stories. More will come in before next week, so I will have a lot of fresh stories. They come in regular. But as always, guys, if you're sitting on a story, if you've recently been to Thailand and something happened to you, it doesn't have to be a relationship story, just anything a little bit quirky, a little bit funny, something that you think others would be interested in, and maybe not in Thailand, maybe from another place around the world. I'm happy to read it out right here on Thailand Bound. Okay, thanks for listening, guys. Once again, guys, have a good week, whatever you're doing, and I'll catch up with you again next Saturday for some more stories right here. Thanks again.